and welcome to the second in our Berges lecture series. I'm Professor Pat Murphy, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight. Most of these Berges lecture speakers come from stories from the media or colleagues or recommendations from friends, but I became aware of Mr. Rooney through my students in the Chicago Executive Program, and one of their final papers is to write a critique of the values of their organization. And to a person, everybody said, our CEO not only promotes our values or is a leader who espouses values, but he lives them and commits them widely to the organization. So I'm looking forward to, Jack, your talk tonight. Just to give you a little background about our speaker, John Rooney, President and CEO of U.S. Cellular. He's held that position since April of 2000. And his emphasis throughout his tenure has been complete customer satisfaction. U.S. Cellular has one of the best customer retention records in the wireless industry. They have 9,000 associates and known for delivering excellent customer service. As most of you know who travel from here to Chicago, U.S. Cellular is the sponsor, has the naming rights of the White Sox field. And what you probably don't know is that they also support the city of Chicago with free festivals throughout the year. And Mr. Rooney, since he joined U.S. Cellular, has been honored with over 100 awards from local and national organizations for its commitment to customer satisfaction in the community, including more than $4 million annually and associate matching gifts to not-for-profit organizations. Prior to being at U.S. Cellular, he worked in a number of executive positions at Ameritech for 9 years. Prior to Ameritech, he held executive positions at Firestone Tire Rubber Corporation and the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. He's born and raised in the south side of Chicago, and like our president, is a passionate White Sox fan, so sorry, Cub fans, that Rooney earned a bachelor's degree in business administration from John Carroll University in Ohio, an MBA in finance from Loyola of Chicago. He's on their board of trustees as well as the board of advisors for their School of Business Administration. Among his many other activities, he's on the Mayor's Council of Technology Advisors, the World Business Chicago. He's been married for 44 years. One thing I learned tonight is he has 3 children, all of whom have degrees from Notre Dame or St. Mary's. His son went to law school and his 2 daughters, one to St. Mary's and one to Notre Dame. So welcome back, Jack. We're looking forward to your speech tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the kind introduction. I hope I can live up to all that. Talk about a little bit about who we are to kick this thing off. U.S. Cellular is a company that has gone through a lot of transformation over the last 10 years. This quote here from one of our associates comes out of the culture survey we run every year, which we take very seriously, which measures how we are performing as a leadership team and as a corporation against the values and behaviors and principles that we've established for the operation of the company. I was talking at dinner tonight, one of the differences here between us and a lot of other corporations that have set up values and behaviors and whatever is we all darn live by it, and we're intolerant of people that don't. I had a case a couple of years ago where we hired a very highly technical guy to come in at a senior director position, and about 6 months after we hired him, my chief operating guy comes into my office and he says, we got to get rid of him. I said, why? He looked at me, he said, because the dynamic organization spit him out. Because people that come into the company that don't live by these principles and values and behaviors don't last long. We're intolerant I mean, that's a word that you don't hear a lot in corporations or any place today. It's not a really politically correct word. But we are intolerant of people that do not behave and honor the values that we set up for. As a result of this, we have 9,000 associates, and our average turnover is about 25%. But even better than that, if you split it up between our call centers and retail, you'll find that they're also 25% in each place. Now, for those of you that are familiar with call center operations, a 25% turnover rate is a golden standard. And the same thing holds true for retail. But anyway, part of what we started out with here is we really moved into the ethics of the business. One of the principles that we have, or the values we have, is pride. And I find it very difficult to understand how you can have an organization that you're proud of that isn't ethical. How do you go home at night and face the kids, say, I work for a bunch of crooks, and feel real good about it? But so many businesses today, especially people coming out of the B schools in business today, think of winning as the whole thing. Don't care how you win. Don't care how you win, but winning. And maybe when you think about some of the things that have happened to us over the last 5 or 7 years with Enron, with some of the other, with WorldCom, some of the other companies, with the stuff that was going on in New York, maybe the lack of understanding of winning versus winning the right way has played a major role in people's ability to effectively rationalize behaviors that really are anti-social, anti-business. One of the things that comes out of this dynamic organization culture survey, and by the way, 95% of our people participated in the survey this year, unproctored. It's about a 45-minute questionnaire, and they gave us reams of write-in comments. But there are words that appear in the survey which sort of the consultant we use to run the survey will pick out and say, these are recurring words that set a theme. And when we first started this back in 2004, these were picking out the words. The first surveys were done in 2000. People started identifying the company as a special place. In 2005, the word love was a very, very common word that was used. And the word was, I love my job, I love what you do, I love the industry, I love my co-workers, but love was a very, very common word. In 2006, they started saying, thank you. Thank you for building a company like this. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to participate. 2007, they were on the growth kick. We're growing and we're happy, and so growth became the common word. Then in 2008, it was belief. I believe in what you're doing. I believe that the leadership of the company knows what's going on. And finally, in 2009, we hit the word trust. I trust that you're going to keep this company going on the right keel. I trust that you care about us and our jobs. I trust that you're going to continue the company on a successful peak. In 2000, when we came in here, the company was run with a very heavy emphasis on the bottom line. The little investment in people or tools. We had 26 regional general managers, as they were called. Each operation ran itself in its own way. They were all called U.S. Cellular, but they didn't even have the same brand, sign, whatever. They were all different. My chief operating officer, who I brought in with me, called it 26 engines running under the same hood. There was no common goal. There were areas out there where no senior executive had ever visited. It was just serendipity out there, no single culture, no single understanding of how you dealt with your customers, not even the same phone selection, whatever. Give you some idea, in '99, which was the year before I came in, we had 2.6 million customers. During that period, we've now grown. At the end of '08, we had 6.2 million customers. Operating revenues of $1.5 billion. Back in '99, we're now operating at $4.3 billion. And operating profit of $255 million back then, and we're now at $414. And so we've grown quite a bit in that period of time. We had something like 1,500 associates back in '08. I mean, in '99, we've got 9,000 today. So the vision is a customer-focused business strategy. You had to sit there and say to yourself, okay, what can this company be? It can't be the biggest, because the next biggest company over us right now, which is T-Mobile, is like 5 or 6 times our size. So if you can't be the biggest, you can't be the technological leader, because you just don't have enough capital to pour into the business. What can you be? And I settled on being the best company in the wireless space. So we put our whole principle about customer satisfaction. We're going to let the customer vote, and it's worked. I mean, we have the most loyal customer base in the industry right now. The roadmap that we use to get there is the dynamic organization, and we're going to talk about that. Dynamic organization is a business model. This is not some sociological experiment. It's a business model that says that everything in successful businesses, and by the way, also holds true for unsuccessful businesses, starts with leadership. In my experience over years, I was constantly frustrated by watching businesses, bad judgment being made by leaders that took businesses and put them into the tank. And then what happened? Well, we'll solve the problem by laying off people. So the people that really had nothing to do with the failure of the business were the people that were paying the price for the poor judgment on the part of the leadership. So we spend a lot of time training our leaders and training them before they get into positions of authority over our associates. One of the principles of the dynamic organization is that the most important people in the organization are the people we choose to talk to our customers. So that means the people in our call centers and our stores are the most important people. And why? Well, if they don't do their job, I don't care whether I got the best marketing guy in the world, or the best financial guy in the world, or the best operations guy in the world, we're all going to fail. We have to have people out there that care, understand the business, and care about the business to bring it home to the customer. So that's what we spend our time focusing our energy through the associates to the customer. So all of the resources of the business, starting with my office and all the way down, is focused on the success of our associates. We think if we feel that way, we're going to get customer satisfaction. And then, and only then, you're going to get the business results that are going to determine whether your business is going to be viewed as a success by your shareholders. So here's the definition of a dynamic organization. And I hate to say this, but I plagiarized this from a And I know in an academic environment that's no good. I was sitting in a waiting room, and the only thing to read one day that I was sitting there was the Harvard Business Review. It's not one of my favorite books. And I picked it up, and there's an article in there about what they call a virtual organization. That's the definition of a virtual organization. Now, the reason we changed the name is every time I talk to my associates about this, when I first started to put it in, their eyes rolled back in their heads, the thought of virtual. What is a virtual organization? But dynamic, they could get their arms around and start at least showing some interest. But it's an organization that understands its vision, goals, and standards so well that its values are obvious, its behaviors are automatically an outcome of the beliefs that have been instilled. I thought it was a great idea. You know, if I could get an organization like that, I could go out and play golf. They didn't need me around. But really, the principle is you don't have people in a command and control environment. You don't have people telling you what to do. This is an organization that trains people to understand so they can make an active contribution to the success of the business. The highest compliment I pay in our company is when I look at somebody and I say, "You are a contributor." That's what Notre Dame says to me, too. So then we said, okay, we got that. Now what are we going to do? And we said, well, we need to get a strategy. How are we going to run this business? Now, this stuff was done 10 years ago, and it has not changed, by the way. So, you know, if you want to talk about strategy, strategy doesn't change most of the time. What happens is the way you approach the strategy might change. You might have different tactical ways of getting to the strategy. But the strategy has to sit in. If it's good strategy, it means it's got enough tolerance for business conditions that if you follow the general outline of what you're doing, you're going to be successful. And what we said was, we're going to achieve profitable growth by focusing on 4 priorities: increasing customer satisfaction, grow our revenues, drive standards of excellence. In other words, we're not going to accept mediocrity in the performance of the business. And we're going to drive the dynamic organization, which is to get everybody under the tent. So now we have to think, I get to do 3 things as chief executive officer. I get to set the vision. I get to set the culture. And then the third thing, which is really sort of the fun thing for me, which is I get to get rid of the becauses. So somebody comes up to me and says, I can't do what you want me to do because. All of a sudden that gets my dander up, gets the hair on the back of my neck going, and I get to do what I generally am not allowed to do as a CEO, which is play in operations. So we decided to make this thing a battle cry. You know, Notre Dame understands what cheers are, right? Yeah. They were making a lot of noise Saturday. Hopefully we're going to be making a lot more noise over the year. But we proudly provide the best in customer satisfaction because customers expect it, and if you were in a room full of our associates, no coaching required, they'd all yell out, "We deliver." That's what we do. We work for that single goal. The mission of the company, again, and this was all done 10 years ago, to provide the highest level of customer satisfaction, which will generate profitable growth for our shareholders, superior rewards for our associates. We achieve this through the dynamic organization based on standards of excellence. 3 parties involved here: customers, shareholders, and associates. And we make sure, when we make a major decision, that all three audiences have a positive impact. All right, there's a positive impact on all three audiences. I mean, if it doesn't, if it's going to screw somebody up, we don't do it. It's Occam's razor. You don't do it if it's going to have a negative impact on any of those three audiences. And that trust, by the way, that we are going to look out for all three, make sure that the associates of the company are also concerned about the shareholders and the customers. Because if they thought, as many companies do, that companies in the name of the customer and in the name of the shareholder are going to screw the galldarn associate, guess what kind of reaction you get? Now, why is it so important? I've got 9,000 of these people out there. I got the next biggest business, next closest business to me is 6 times my size. And I'm trying to compete with them. The only way I can compete with them is get them fired up. Get them fired up so they go out there and win. And there's no such thing as a happy loser. Never met one. So, what are our values? Well, obviously, our first value is customer focus. Customers number one. 100% of the 9,000 associates, or the 8,800 that have replied to the culture survey, listed as their number one job, serving customers. That's sort of gratifying to a guy like me. Second one is the respect for associates. We got to respect each other. And when somebody gets spit out of this organization, it's generally because they think they're hot stuff compared to somebody else. That doesn't work very well. Pride, ethics, 2 things that go together. I already talked about that. Our pride numbers are right off the... We don't have the number. Maureen, do we have the number on what the pride reaction was? That was way up in the upper 90s too, right? Is it in there somewhere? We don't have it. Way up in the upper 90s. That the people are extremely proud, not somewhat proud, extremely proud of what we're doing at U.S. Southern. Ethics, something we've been working on for 10 years. Every one of our associates has to go through a whole series of modules on ethics. Interesting how we got into this. The first culture survey we did, the answer we got back was very heavily that they thought everybody was somewhat ethical. I had a very difficult time understanding what somewhat ethical meant. So when we got out there and did some interviews, focus groups with the associates, we found out, well, one person's ethics is another person's argument with the neighbor. And so we had to get down, we had to get some uniform definitions and whatever, and we started teaching the course. Then we ran into another problem, is that the test on the course was administered through the desktops. And guys were answering like 50 questions in 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which told me that somebody had the answers. So, and they weren't paying much attention to what they were saying. So we had to go through a series of things to get that. It's really not very good when you have an unethical response to an ethics test, you know. Excuse me, can we go back? Empowerment. We want to empower our associates to use judgment in dealing with the customer especially. And, you know, that's a dangerous thing, right? But if you got people that are properly motivated, understand where where you come from. If we're really living by that dynamic organization definition, we can trust them. And we've found out that's very good. And they're very proud of the fact that they get trusted. So, the last one we put in, the whole definition of this thing was put together back in 1993. And the first major change made to the list of values was the addition of the diversity. And the reason we did that is I always thought it was sort of implied in the way we ran the business. But we found out that by putting it in there, it gave people something that really, really put the importance of this in. Now, in a retail organization, diversity is absolutely essential. I mean, you gotta, to use a phrase of one of my leaders, you have to have the same colors as the customer you serve. Whether that color is tans or whites or blacks or greens or yellows, or is it a cultural color? I mean, it's got to be, you got to mirror or have understanding of the customers you serve. And we worked awful hard at that. And we're still not there, but we're getting there. Okay. Then we said behaviors. How do we want people to behave? So we said we want them to have a common purpose. We want everybody working together for the same goal. We want passion about the company and their jobs. Now you're going to see a lot of words here that are very, very emotional words. I believe in emotion. I believe in emotion. I've been known to stand up here and cry. It's all right. I don't care if the crying is about the right thing. One of the quotes that was in the culture survey this time, they said, "I've never seen a CEO cry unless he's being led away and changed to the hoosgow." So you got to have trust. You got to have a lot of trust. We were talking about at dinner, I talked about change. This is an industry that changes constantly and rapidly. It reinvents itself every 6 to 9 months. So when you're changing, you don't want to be in a position where everybody looks at you aghast that we're out to screw them. And that's when you do the change in a vacuum, that's what happens. So we want them to trust us. And they do. And that's also a tremendous burden on the leadership of the company. It's one thing if they expect you to screw them, then maybe you can feel pretty good about screwing them. Or not feel good about it, but not worry about it. But when they trust you not to do that, when they trust you to take into account their interests in operation of the business, they trust you to effectively look out for them and their families with the same degree of attention you pay to the shareholders and to the others. Boy, the pressure on you to do the right job becomes acute. We were talking about the fact that we'll sit around and every once in a while, just like every other leadership team, the senior leadership team will get sort of in a blue funk because things aren't going the way we put them together in the business plan. And the way we more often than not get out of it is somebody says, "Hey, look, we can't sit around feeling sorry for ourselves. We got 9,000 people to watch out for." And it does. It brings you right out of it. Brings you right out of it. You got to have willingness to learn. I mean, change. You got to be able to adapt to what's going on. You got to have openness. We have lots of transparency, within the organization. We have Listen Jack, which is a email address which goes right to my office. And an associate, I will read every Listen Jack that comes in. It's a private communication. I can have an open door policy in the office, but I can't have it for 9,000 people. So this is their door to me. And, I get 20, 30 a day. Some of them are good, thanks. Some of them are not so good. But most of them are about things we can do to change the business to make it better. Again, it's a question of trust. We have motivation by values, not fear. Fear will destroy an organization. I was lecturing in MBA program at another school. I guess I could tell you, Loyola. And one of the young persons in the school, in the class, looked at me and he said, "How can you lead if people are not afraid of you?" And I thought to I looked at him and I thought to myself, you poor soul. Leadership is a privilege. It's an absolute privilege. That means you got to earn it. You got to earn it. And, that was a tough thing when I first came in here. Leaders thought they had some divine right to lead people. And when you get that ego in the leader, it never results in good stuff. Leadership is the ultimate privilege. My jollies and the jollies of every leader in our organization should come from the success of the people we're leading. If you want to get good results, if you want to be successful, what's the leader there for? To take attendance? The leader is there to imbue in the associates he or she's leading the things necessary for them to do their job better than they otherwise would. Otherwise, you don't need the leader. So does the leader get patted on the back for he's doing a great job? No, he gets patted on the back for the people, the performance of the people he's leading. And that's a tough one. God rests the leader who walks into my office and says, "Boy, my team stinks, but I'm good." And there are a lot of people around that like to get away with that. Enthusiasm. I walked into the first call center I visited when I came to U.S. Cellular, Knoxville. This big, beautiful call center, 500 people. I walked into the main room where the calls that were being handled by the reps. Big sign over the door, silence. I thought I was walking into a goddamn funeral parlor. Didn't take me long to change that, but it was just the way the company was run. Unselfishness. We don't want people fighting over who gets the glory. We want everybody working for the same common goal, the betterment of our customers. It's amazing. People respond so well. I've got a theory, which comes, by the way, because of my Jesuit training, but it's true. The people always act for the good, as they perceive it. And I've got this philosophy that people will react well for what I call a noble goal. So we try to give them noble goals to work for. It doesn't do me any good to sit and lecture some call center rep about operating profit. They don't understand what that means. And they can't control it. So you chew on them because their operating profits are bad, and all they do is go into a shell. But what they can control is first call resolution. Do they handle the customer right when the customer calls in? Do they solve the problem for them? You know, one of the things that irritates the hell out of me is when I call somebody and in a call center and I get, well, I'll give you $5. I don't want $5. I want my problem solved. And we work hard at that. Giving credits is the easiest way to get a customer off your back, but also the worst thing you can do because you're not solving the problem. Flexibility, you got to be flexible. Change requires flexibility. And if we ask you to do something that's a little different from your job description, we expect you to do it. Because why? Because we're serving the customer. We want you to adjust your schedule. That's a key thing in a call center. You do it because of the customer. Now, we try to be very careful about that, but it happens. And we want you to have confidence in the company, with its leadership and its owner and each other. We want everybody feeling good about the people you're working with and working for. So. Culture survey was started in 2000, and really it started before that. When I first came up with the idea of the dynamic organization, I asked our human resources people if I could get somebody to come in and measure it. So Myra Kruger came in to talk to me with her husband, and Eisler Kruger is the name of the firm. And I said, through the definition I had her, I said, I want to measure this. And she threw it back at me. She says, there's not enough meat to this to measure anything. So she sat down with me, and for 3 months, we worked on this whole structure of what a dynamic organization is, the values, the behaviors, the definitions, the mission, everything to go along with it. And to this day, she still plays a very important role in keeping me on the straight and narrow here relative to this. But we started it in U.S. Cellular in 2000. We've had over 90% participation by the associates in every year. Now, that's wonderful. It shows people they're interested. They're interested because we're interested. They know we read it and we do something about it. Every associate gets a crack at me. So I get a book about that thick full of comments. So when I get my book, I go find a corner, pour myself a nice adult beverage, and read. And sometimes I find something I haven't seen before. But at my age, it's kind of hard now. You know, you've done this so long, it keeps on coming back at you. But, you know, when you got 90%, there's no place to hide. You can't say that there's a statistical aberration in your number. You know, I had trouble with statistics when I was in college, but even I'm smart enough to know that 93%, you know, what they're telling me is what they're telling me. We've conducted it every year with this outside consulting firm. We get written survey questions and focus groups, and the results are presented at an annual leadership forum, which we just had last weekend. Was it last weekend? I think it was last weekend. She's leaving me now. We had 1,400 leaders. Every leader, everybody that has people reporting to them comes in for this conference. And we read out the results of the survey. Each leader with more than 3 people gets a report card on the dynamic organization. And that plays a role in their development and promotability. We hit a milestone in the company about 4 years ago. We have talent reviews twice a year for directors and above that I participate in. We do it for every leader, but I don't participate down in the manager level. Those We grade our leaders on two axes. The what do you do? Okay, is it, generally that's the traditional way you measure anybody in business. Do you hit your budgets? Do you do this or you do that? And then the other axis is how you do it. If you don't do it the right way, you're going to get dinged. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we started taking people out of the organization that were doing well in the what, but were not doing it the right way. That was a sense of maturity that the dynamic organization that we just reached. We do not tolerate, back to that word again, we do not tolerate people who do not do their job the right way. When we took over the company, there was this ambivalence about ethics. 83% agreed with the statement that we were an ethical company somewhat. Ethical was number 10 on a list of words that best describe U.S. Cellular. And we were very concerned as to what that meant for the organization. And we, as I told you, we undertook a massive review of what was causing associates to feel that way. I think we were probably one of the first companies in the country to install an ethics program without a gun to their head. And I was very pleased to watch the business school up here and the one back at Loyola, by the way, emphasize ethics as a part of their curriculum. It's you guys are well known for that. That's good. Right away when I got there, we implemented competitive pay scales. To tell you how bad things were, we had full-time associates on food stamps in some of these regions. We called all the leaders together, and I remember we sent out a bunch of stuff on the dynamic organization. We had the 50 top leaders of the company, and I gave them a survey, and one of the questions on the survey is, can we ever be a company like this? All 50 said no. There's about 3 of them left. Because what we did was we just got rid of everybody that, I'm a great visual guy. My visualization was a radar screen where I had a few points of light, which represented the good managers, the good leaders in the company, and the rest of it was black. Now what we have is a white screen with a few spots of black. That's good. Our communications tools, I think I talked to you about Listen Jack, that's the email. We have straight talks. The 5 of us, myself and my 4 senior officers, go out and sit down with frontline associates, about 20 in a session. No agenda, no speeches on our part. We're there to listen. Whatever they want to talk about. They want to talk about whether Notre Dame won the last football game or not, they can do that. Most of them don't, because they're not Notre Dame fans anyway. But the point is that it's just a tremendous enlightenment. We uncover a lot of things that need work, need effectiveness, but it also gives them a sense that, gee, I can sit down with Jack, or I can sit down with Mike, and all of our guys are known by their first names. No Mr. stuff in our business. And they can sit down and have a face-to-face. That makes a lot of difference to these people. We have Dynamically Speaking, which is a centralized publication, but it deals with things related to the dynamic organization, not whether Matilda had a baby or not. We have the Leadership Forum, which, as I've already described, that's where we bring them all together, and we spend 2 days discussing leadership and we have what we call an annual kickoff meeting, which we have at the beginning of every year. Last year we changed the whole format. It used to be a lot of a fun type thing. We have skits and whatever. But yes, this year, we put the 5 of us up on stools to talk and answer questions about the economy, the future of the business, and where things were, because we knew the associates were all concerned. Everybody gets invited to those things. We do satellite hookups for some of the more remote locations. But it's also a way for us to communicate things that are of concern to us as leaders and listen to the associates and their concerns. We've defined ethical behavior, created a code, and the name of the program is Just Do the Right Thing. That's the way we try to define what ethics is. Just do the right thing. And if you're being asked to do something that you don't think is the right thing, there's ample communication opportunity. You should be standing on your desk, if nothing else, screaming at the top of your lungs. You should never be asked to do something that you have concern about. This doesn't work. Nokia Gate. Here's one that was one of the first examples, or first way we set an example. We had a contest for Nokia in Wisconsin. And it was run by Nokia, involving our associates obviously on sales of Nokia products. We found out that some of our associates were cheating. And a stupid thing to cheat about, right? I mean, so they were going for trinkets and trash, not cash. And we took them out. And they couldn't figure that out. They said, we didn't cheat the company. What are you getting upset with us? We took them out because they were doing something that they shouldn't have been doing. Whether you cheat the company or you cheat Nokia or you cheat period, you're not going to be around this company. And while he didn't go on individuals involved, we sure as hell made sure that the rest of the organization knew what was going on so that taking them out had some sort of a positive result. It was a defining moment. And it was interesting because the first reaction of the associates was negative. Why'd you do that? And 3 weeks later it was, boy, I'm glad you did that. You determined what was going to happen. Where's she sitting now? Maureen? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, just was wondering. This is one of the things that we sort of dote on. But this is, again, a statement from... These statements, by the way, while they're individual statements, they are ideas that are reflected multiple times. They have to be reflected multiple times before we record the quote. Just a way of an associate saying to us, hey, we trust you. We trust you. We think you're doing the right thing. 98% of the associates, that is the pride thing. I thought we had it in there. 98% of the associates say they're proud of what we're accomplishing. 98%. I was listening to a statistic the other day that of the people that are still working, 51% are very unhappy with their jobs. And of that 51%, 40%, so 80% of the 51%, would leave their companies if they had a choice. And then I see something like that. It shows me I'm doing something right, or we're doing something right. We had a bump in the road with E911. This is the danger of letting lawyers getting involved with customer relations. We had a lot of phones out there in this era of changing technology, which were not equipped with satellite identification. And with E911, you had to be able to identify a phone and put it within, 10 yards of where the person was. So you did that through the satellite system positioning. And we had a bunch of phones. We had too many old phones out there in the hands of our customers that didn't qualify. So we tried a whole bunch of stuff trying to get them to respond. We weren't getting the right response. So now we were rushing up against a FCC mandate to go ahead and fix the problem or you're going to get fined. And the lawyers said, oh, fix that. And they put out a letter telling this customer if they didn't change their phones, we were going to fine them, we were going to do this, and we were going to do that. And the customers got really ticked off, as did some of the state regulators. So what we did is we sat back, and I read that, and I was not necessarily in the greatest moods. This was one legitimately I can say they did something they didn't tell me. And so we wrote a new letter. And we talked about the fact, how do we make it right? And I told them, I don't care what it costs. We're going to fix it. And we sent out a letter, and we did fix it. And it cost us a few bucks. We had to give out a lot of free phones. This is a statement from the Wisconsin State Journal giving U.S. Cellular a pat on the back. We didn't do it to get a pat on the back. We did it to calm our customers down. So today, when we analyze the ethics thing, we have 83% agreeing strongly, well, 38% agreed strongly, that we work ethically in 2000. 94% agreed, 66% strongly today. We still need to get the other 34%, but we'll get them. I mean, we got to understand but when you're dealing with an issue like ethics, you got a lot of other things that I didn't get a raise, and Sonia got a raise, and I didn't get a raise, and that's obviously unethical or whatever. So, here's some of the statements from the culture survey. We own up to our mistakes. We always do right. And we don't bait and switch. There's no gray area. If you cross the line, you're going to get hammered. And by the way, being hammered doesn't necessarily change the fact that we treat our people with respect. We just fire them respectfully. Today, the list of words that most describe the company, we do is put the 2000 numbers up there, show you what was there before. You can see the tremendous change in the order and the number of things that get in there. Ethical now is the second most used word to describe the company. Proud, welcoming, values-driven, hardworking, open, diverse, fun, goal-oriented. By the way, having fun is okay. But the kind of fun we encourage is the fun you get from doing your job well and getting recognized for it. So, thank you.
We have time for a couple questions, and then most of my students know that Jack's going to have a Q&A session here, but let's just take a couple quick questions here before we sign off around 8 o'clock. Who'll be first? It's going to be a short Q&A, Jack. All right.
I had a question about that last comment from one of your associates about how they have a line and they know if they cross it. Does having that line encourage them to defer their judgment to you? Like, are they still making ethical decisions, or are they just kind of afraid of your consequences?
Well, fear, I told you, fear is no good. Whether you're afraid for getting hammered for doing the wrong thing or you're afraid for doing anything, okay, it's wrong. We don't see any signs that they're deferring activity on the basis of that. What they're saying is, hey, in my store, we do things a certain way. If we don't do it, somebody's going to pay the price, and we know that. That's the way I interpret it anyway.
One more, friend.
With all the merger and acquisition stuff that's going on in the industry, what do you see for the future of U.S. Cellular? We talk about the size.
If I told you, I'd have to shoot you. Can I deviate for a moment and tell a little story? I was talking to a group of associates in Cedar Rapids about a new and they asked me a question about a new product introduction. And I said, if I do know, I said, but if I told you, I'd have to shoot you. And from the back of the room, this woman's voice comes out, tell my husband! I think U.S. Cellular is going to be around for a long time. Our ownership is such. U.S. Cellular is owned 80% by a company called TDS, Telephone Data Systems, and the Carlson family, which is a sort of a founding family in wireless telecommunications and wireline, own 53% of TDS. Nobody can get a hold of us unless that family wants to sell. I do not think they want to sell. I keep on telling our associates every time I get that question, our job is to do so well that they can't afford to sell us. So, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Jeff. You mentioned about driving transparency in the company. Can you just share some thoughts about how you were able to start that?
Well, it's just, the minute you start talking to the frontline associate, all of a sudden things open up. Initially, the reaction from the middle management is, oh my God, he's talking to these guys, they're going to kill me. But the more I find out from the frontline associate, and I ask the middle manager about it, then he's also got to start thinking about giving me the answer too, right? He doesn't want to sit there and have me know more than he does. So what it does is it tends to open the whole organization up. And some of it is nasty stuff. I get some stuff where there's abuse or there's sexual harassment or there's those things I have to take action on. Most of the stuff is very positive. Occasionally I get something that they feel they're getting screwed on their benefits, so we work on that. Really having me as a friend is not a bad idea. So, but that works very well. It's opened it all up. And now we really don't have any problem with that at all anymore.
One last question, and then we'll move to the Q&A. So you choose, Jack. You got 3 guys here with their hand up.
When you're changing corporate culture, when you originally come into the organization, and you want to do that with a certain amount of speed, where do you draw talent from that you dispose of?
Well, in the first time I did this, I had to draw the talent from within the organization. First time I did this was Ameritech. I've done it 3 times. First time I did it was Ameritech Cellular. I drew the talent from within the organization, and it was just, just knowing the people, and I've always been a fairly good judge of people. When I got into U.S. Cellular, I was able to handpick people that really wanted to do it again, from Ameritech, former Ameritech. And they were more glad to come over. So that worked out well. And someone we hired from the outside, and that's a crapshoot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There was one other question. One other gentleman raised their hand. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of a similar question, but with a 25% turnover of the employees, do you focus more on training or special recruiting in terms of the quality service?
Both. I mean, training, we train and train and train. For customer service people, training is like mother's milk. And I don't know if you saw the ad that we had in a few months ago. Not an ad, it was a TV spot about you could fly a plane and, jump out of a plane and learn how to do that in a week and whatever, but you have to go to school for 8 weeks to become a customer service rep in our organization. That was very, very important. And by the way, you want to talk about pride. You can imagine when the first time that was shown at a call center. I mean, it was just wonderful. But it's training, but you also have to be able to say no to people that, we become a destination employer, okay, because of the way we treat our people, et cetera. So we're able to attract pretty good people.
Well, thank you, Jack. It was great, and we appreciate it. And we'll break here for 5 minutes. I know some people have to go, but Jack's willing to answer some other questions. So let's join me in a round of applause.